Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and welcome to the Deep Dark. That's right, the Deep Dark is finally here with the Minecraft 1.19 Deep Dark Experimental Snapshot. This snapshot brings some long-awaited features, such as the Deep Dark, Sculk Blocks, Ancient Cities, and the Warden himself. Now, I know that first clip didn't really show the Deep Dark being dark, and that's because I had night vision on, because let's face it, it's really hard to see in a video, especially with video compression and all, so I'll just be using night vision for most of this video. But here, I just want to show you the Warden emerging in the dark with a full set of unenchanted netherite armor, like was shown in the first Minecon Live reveal of the Warden. So, let me just head up to a Sculk sensor, get it to trigger a Sculk Shrieker, and see the Warden emerge. And here he comes. And there's the darkness effect. Yeah, okay, let's rush this through. Oh wow, he one-shot me. As I hinted at before, the Warden does not naturally spawn. It only spawns when summoned in by a Sculk Shrieker, which themselves only generate in ancient cities, the rest of the Deep Dark, or when grown by a Sculk Catalyst. Sculk Shriekers by themselves aren't very threatening. I can just run around here and it's not going to spawn the Warden. Though, one thing I must say, whatever you do not step on the Sculk Shrieker. If you do, it'll immediately summon the Warden. There is also a second way a Sculk Shrieker can be activated. Although Sculk Shriekers themselves do not detect vibrations, they can be passed those vibrations through a Sculk sensor. This Sculk sensor, right here, is about to be triggered. And when it does, you can see the Sculk particle move to the Sculk Shrieker, which then, in turn, immediately summons a Warden. In case you're worried about the possibility that another mob gets into the Deep Dark and accidentally summons the Warden, don't be. That's not possible. Every time the Sculk Shrieker activates, some sort of player interaction is required. For instance, if I summon this creeper right here, it'll trigger the Sculk sensor, it even walks on the Shrieker, but none of those activate it, and no Warden is summoned. Something else that's very important that I need to clarify on is that a Warden will not be spawned the first time you activate a Sculk Shrieker. It will only be spawned the third time you activate a Sculk Shrieker, but it does not have to even be the same Sculk Shrieker, nor does the Sculk Shrieker even have to be loaded at the time. And this is this way for thousands of blocks. You literally have to get thousands of blocks away from the Sculk Shrieker in order to find one that won't just immediately summon a Warden if you've already activated two. Though, there is one way to reset the Sculk Shriekers, and that's by dying. Here's this third Sculk Shrieker here. This one will actually summon a Warden. The Warden also doesn't just have to spawn in the Deep Dark, or on any Deep Dark block like Deep Slate or Sculk. It can spawn, actually, just about anywhere as long as you have a Sculk Shrieker. Though, the one condition the Sculk Shrieker does have is it has to spawn the Warden someplace dark. If I try to do this out in the middle of day, the Sculk Shrieker will go off, and then the Sculk Shrieker will play a sort of sad roar, indicating that the Warden failed to spawn. However, if I switch it to night, and I trigger that Sculk Shrieker again, well, the Warden's going to come out. Even if you do trigger the Sculk Shrieker out in the day, don't assume you're safe, because even in a slightly dark spot, the Warden can still be spawned. In most of the previous clips, you could see the Warden emerging from the ground when it was summoned by the Skulk Shrieker. Now, if you thought this animation was cool or scary, let me ruin it for you. Because, as you can see, right here we've got a bunch of barrier blocks. And yes, as I said before, the Warden spawns on almost any block. And that includes barriers. So let's watch his animation of him being summoned without any blocks in the way. It's kind of funny looking. Something reassuring that you should know is that only one Skulk Shrieker can trigger at a time, and Skulk Shriekers will not trigger if there is a nearby Warden. Here this one's going to spawn a Warden in. I'll get the darkness effect, which is a little weird with night vision. And none of these other Skulk Shriekers will activate. The most common place you'll probably come across the Warden is in ancient cities, a new massive structure that contains tons of loot and ways to avoid the Warden. Unfortunately, most of the loot in the Deep Dark is actually pretty bad. Well, that is, besides the new enchantment, Swift Sneaking. This is the only place you can get this enchantment. However, the Swift Sneaking enchantment itself is kind of not very good. Not because there's no use for it, but because when you put it on boots, you can't combine it with Depth Strider, or Frostwalker, or even Soul Speed. What the Swift Sneaking enchantment allows you to do is it allows you to move as fast as you are when you're walking, when sneaking. This is pretty useful since neither the Warden nor Skulk sensors can detect you when you're sneaking. So you can just sneak right past this guy at a faster speed. What you can also find in ancient cities are snowballs, which can be used to distract the Warden. Just make sure you get far enough away from it before you throw it though, because it can hear you throwing the projectile. Once you're far enough away, just throw the snowball, and the Warden will go to its location. Though, be careful, because if you throw too many projectiles too fast, the Warden will start aggroing on you. The main hallways of ancient cities are lined with a wool floor, and since wool includes vibrations, you can run and jump around these like normal without having any fear of the Warden or a Skulk sensor detecting you. Though be careful, at some points of these hallways, there are Skulk veins on the floor, which do not occlude vibrations. Jumping or running on these can actually trigger the Warden and Skulk sensors. Some other fun facts about ancient cities are that out in the front, there are these redstone lamps, which all have Skulk sensors on them, something that I correctly predicted before. If you trigger some vibration near them, you'll activate these redstone lamps. And then there's also this new block, Reinforced Deep Slate. It's unobtainable in survival. Though, unlike some other unobtainable blocks, like bedrock or end frames, you can actually mine this. Though it's very difficult to do so. If I try to mine it regularly, I'm gonna get nowhere, and it'll take me over a minute to mine this block with a netherite pickaxe with efficiency 5. So I'll just speed that up with some Ace 100, and that still takes me an insanely long time to mine the block. Even though I mined the Reinforced Deep Slate with a Silk Touch pickaxe, I got nothing in return. Strangely enough, you can actually push Reinforced Deep Slate with a piston. And one last cool fact about ancient cities, even though the loot is pretty bad, which don't worry, I'm sure will be fixed in a later snapshot, you can find skeleton skulls scattered throughout the structure. So it's a good way to get skeleton skulls if you don't want to bother getting a charged creeper. Now, let's discuss the Warden's attack behaviors. The Warden has one primary attack, and that's punching, and it does a ton of damage. Also, the Warden does have the passive effect of giving the darkness status effect to any nearby player. Though one thing you should know is that the Warden won't just go out of its way and attack you. You first have to provoke it somehow, and there's 3 ways to do that. If you make a vibration, that will not provoke the Warden. Instead, it'll just walk over to the vibration. However, if you make 2 vibrations within the span of 5 seconds, that's gonna anger the Warden, and he'll come to kill you. The second way to aggro the Warden is to just stand too close to him for too long. I'll just follow the Warden around here, and eventually he'll get sick of me. Like that! And the third and final way to aggro the Warden, well, it's pretty simple. Just attack him. The Warden won't only attack players though, it'll attack actually anything that provokes it. For instance, this zombie here, if it starts making too many vibrations, this will annoy the Warden to the point of attacking him. Let's just help that zombie make those vibrations to demonstrate the point. The Warden does his roar animation, and he one-shots the zombies. Also, unlike other mobs that can attack most other mobs, the Warden can even attack creepers, which not even Zoglins or Iron Golems do. If we just get this creeper to make the necessary vibrations to annoy the Warden, he'll do his roar and kill the creeper. And yes, mobs that attack the Warden automatically provoke him. One interesting thing you might have noticed is the Warden only does his roar sound and animation if it's attacking a mob that did not attack him first. Some other important things to know about the Warden include the fact that the Warden can smell you. At times, if the Warden hasn't recently detected any vibrations, it'll make a sniffing noise, then move in your general location. The Warden can also detect the same vibrations a skulk sensor does, but it has more than double the range and can actually detect the actual skulk sensor itself, something other skulk sensors can't do. Interestingly, the Warden is an undead mob. This means effects like poison do not affect it, and it's healed by instant damage and harmed by instant health. Despite the Warden looking big, it's actually only about the same size as an Enderman, which means it can fit through 1 wide gaps, like this one right here. And the Warden will come right up through there and kill me. Now that I've got all the basics of the Warden out of the way, it's time to show some strategies to defeat it. First, I'll start with some bad strategies that do not work. First one I'll be showing is trying to brute force it. Right here, I've got God armor that isn't even possible to obtain in the latest version of Minecraft. I've also got this insane sword with Smite 5 since the Warden's undead, and some totems. And this is gonna go terribly. You cannot just attack the Warden like it's any other mob. For starters, the Warden has 500 health, more than any other mob on the Java edition. There's also the fact that the Warden's insane attack damage not only does a number on me, even through God armor, but it also disables shields. And the Warden chews through these totems like they're nothing. Next up, we have our second bad strategy for trying to defeat the Warden, distracting it with TNT. This strategy is pretty simple. Since the Warden detects vibrations, it'll detect me placing down TNT and lighting it and walk straight over to the TNT to receive the damage from it. Yep, so the TNT will just explode in its face. Only problem, the Warden has 500 health and it knows who lit the TNT. So even if I were to use a flame bow or a fire charge, the Warden would still be aggravated at me right now. And that's a pretty big problem. So yeah, I don't recommend this strategy. The next strategy I'll cover is the intended strategy, what you're supposed to do if you accidentally summon the Warden, and that is by simply avoiding it. When the Warden spawns in, I've got my Swift Sneak boots to help me out. I just shift away and continue to avoid the Warden. After a minute of it not detecting any vibrations, it'll go back into the ground. So yeah, in the end, the Warden doesn't detect anything, and it crawls back into the ground. This is an okay strategy. It does what you really want, which is to survive, but you don't get to kill the Warden, which is the fun part. And before I continue, the Warden can dig down and despawn on any block. So I had to show, once again, how funny this is on transparent barrier blocks. This next strategy is for if you accidentally did summon in the Warden and you don't want to deal with it or sneak around and wait for it to despawn. Even if you do aggro it, the simple strategy is just run away. You, the player, for some reason, is faster than the Warden. And the Warden is like any other mob. If you get far enough away, it will just despawn. It's that simple. What's even better than letting the Warden despawn is to not summon him at all. And while yes, you could just crouch around the entire time you're in an ancient city or the deep dark, there's a faster way. Right here, I've got a very powerful hoe, and if I trigger this Skulk Shrieker here, and I break it before it finishes shrieking, no Warden will be summoned. And you can just keep doing that. Every time you encounter a Skulk Shrieker, just break the Shrieker, and no Warden will ever come. Pretty simple way of avoiding the Warden, though I'm sure this will be fixed eventually. One last way to dodge having to deal with the Warden is to, well, make it go away. You see, a Warden cannot be put in a minecart or boat, so what's the next best thing? Sending it to the Nether, and that's what I'll be showing here. I just break some blocks to build the Nether portal, and by the time our Warden friend over here spawns in, he'll never be able to get to me. And like that, he's gone. Just be aware, you can spawn in another Warden once that Warden goes to the Nether portal, and also, you need to make sure that there's already another portal on the other side, otherwise he will not go through. Oh, and he doesn't despawn, so maybe try to not use the Nether while he's in there. Now it's time for the strategies that'll allow you to actually kill the Warden. First up are the cheesy ones, the ways that are probably not intended. Remember when I said the Warden had the same height as an Enderman? Well yeah, that can be used against it. Just make a 3-block tall thing, run underneath it, and the Warden cannot attack you. He'll try, but he cannot reach you. And the Warden's dead. A second way to cheesily kill the Warden is, funnily enough, accidentally provided in the ancient cities themselves. You see, when this Warden spawns in, I'm gonna go into that water pit over there. Remember earlier when I said the Warden was an undead mob? Well, that works to the Warden's disadvantage, because it sinks in water. And even this 1-block deep water pit is too much for the Warden to get out of. Yeah, they should probably fix that. Once again, the Warden is dead. Our third strategy to cheesily defeat the Warden is a lot like the second, except this time, instead of using a pool of water, we're just going to use a singular lava bucket. Once the Warden spawns in, we'll just aggro him, run away, and when he gets close, we'll drop this lava bucket down. and now he's stuck since the lava pushes him, which has been a feature since 1.16. Now he's completely trapped, unable to get up, and we can just finish him off. Another warden down. Our next cheesy warden-killing strategy is an old speedrunning trick. All we have to do is wait for the warden to spawn in, and if you're familiar with how speedrunners kill iron golems, we can do the same thing. I have no idea why this cheese wasn't patched. The developers obviously knew this was going to be happening. I guess they'll just fix this in a later snapshot. Yet another warden down. Another way to get an easy kill on the warden is to exploit an issue that's present in its AI and the AI of every single other mob as well. If I put this moss block here, bone meal it, and then surround myself with some azaleas, you'll see that the warden is unable to get to me. And that's just because, for some weird reason, mobs cannot pathfind through azaleas. So even though he's trying to get to me, he can't, and I can just easily kill him right here. This issue should probably be fixed, because it's really weird. This next trick, once again, exploits the warden's height. You see, when a Skulkshrieker summons in the warden, it doesn't always put it in the best spot. Sometimes it can even spawn a warden under blocks that'll suffocate him, which is what we have here. And now I'll just speed this kill up. Our final strategy to cheesily eliminate the warden uses yet another flaw the warden has. You see, the warden is immune to knockback from things like swords, but for some reason it's not immune to the knockback from a punch bow. So if I start shooting at this warden, you'll see that each time I hit him, he gets knocked back. And if I've got enough arrows, then the warden's absolutely no match for me. I'm also using slowness arrows just as an extra precaution. Alright, enough of killing the warden in cheesy ways that'll probably just end up getting patched. It's time to kill the warden in a more legitimate manner. Because you see, I don't think the warden is quite up to date on End Crystal PvP. Another warden down. Let's see if the warden fares any better against respawn anchor PvP. Though I must personally admit I'm not that good with respawn anchor PvP. Let's see how this goes. Oh, no wait, the warden's dead. And and it's time for me to present my final method for killing the Warden. Earlier, I said you couldn't just brute force the Warden in a fight and expect to win. And that's mostly true, but there is one exception. An item that'll change the dynamic of that fight. And that item is the Turtle Master Potion. Specifically, the Turtle Master 2 Potion, which grants you Resistance 4. More than enough to turn the fight in your favor. And like that, we've just 1 heart left and seconds to spare on our potion timer. The Warden is dead. I cannot overemphasize the fact that you need a Smite 5 Netherite sword in order to do this. I just wanted to show this too. In those 3 previous clips, this is the armor I was wearing. All of this is possible to get in survival, and here's the Netherite sword I was using. And that's everything you need to know about the Warden and how to beat it as of this first 1.19 snapshot. Yes, I'm aware that there's probably other ways of beating the Warden, but most of those ways would use similar methods as the ones I've shown in this video. Also, I'm aware a lot of these ways will be patched, so I'll make an updated video then. One last thing, if you're curious about how to get the experimental snapshot yourself, I made a similar video for how to get the experimental snapshots back in 1.18 that should still work with this one. But that's all I've got for now, so thank you all for watching. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Once again, thank you all for watching, and goodbye.